Tia said she spent about an hour and a half on this assessment. She's not sure what to ask about, but if I have time or something to suggest or mention, I'm open. Okay. Tia just said, I had to chuckle when your video on perfectionism had the backdrop of those perfect little gold dots. Do you know what's driving me crazy too, actually? So one side, if you look, actually, they're not very perfect, but I actually had to paint over and around the dots because my colors were getting really muddy. There was a lot of pencil markup on my surface, so I had to paint over them. Well, it's a slightly different yellow. So now I'm having to paint over this side. And if you look carefully in the lighting, you can see there's a line like right here because I got tired and annoyed. But so it ends up covering a bunch of the dots. And it's initially I was like, my dots are all ruined. But now I'm actually seeing they seem more integrated into the background. So again, we're all learning and testing ourselves. So a pre-assessment. A pre-assessment is, again, it's not an artwork per se. It's a tool that's going to help you measure and assess your growth over time. So I didn't want to give you instruction on these, and I didn't want you to be able to fix things that you saw wrong after the fact. And I do want you to store them away and not really look at them, because like I was saying earlier, the point of them is to see what you were doing before this course, and then be able to come back to this image, try it again, and then see what you're doing after the course and see what's shifted for you and what's happened. That is going to help you actually see where you're growing and what you want to work on. So over these 6 weeks, you might see all of a sudden, like some people have a really big shift in their understanding about that outlining and value. That tends to be a really big win for some people. Well, then all of a sudden you're going to notice this big shift in your ability to capture a three-dimensional form or face. Well, then all of a sudden your desire for a certain goal might be more. You might be like, well, now I'm closer to having that three-dimensional form, so I really want to work on this next. That's how these assessments are going to help you. They're going to help you see how you're growing, because you're going to be able to compare the drawing over time and go, oh, well, I did this drawing of this flower and frog, and now 6 months from now, I'm going to try it again, or 6 weeks from now, after this program's done, I'm going to try this image again, and I want to see how much I get done in the same amount of time. And that timing is actually quite telling. Timing and comparing your time spent, if you can get a lot more done, that actually shows that you've really grown in skill. Or it could be that you're more accurate in what you accomplish in that same time frame. Those are all different telling points, and you can see, oh wow, well, I really do have a better understanding of negative space, but you know what? I'm noticing that I really can't convey texture yet the way I want to, specifically around hair. So this is something I'm going to study. That is what an assessment is for. We have such a bad rap now because of kind of the world of too much assessment in school systems, but assessments actually can be quite informative. They actually reinforce learning. They actually having quizzes periodically, artwork activities like this that are kind of like a quiz. They actually make you retain more information than if you'd had no quiz at all. And they help you suss out where you are and where you want to go. So again, at the end of the program, you're going to draw this again, or you're going to draw a new image and compare the two if you get bored with sticking with one. But it's easier to see your growth if you stick to one image and kind of revisit it. So some people will actually have an image they like and return to it every year for a period of time for like 3 years. And then they save all these images, and then they can actually see their learning in this image. So again, it's not about a finished artwork. It's about helping us see what we do or don't do. So looking at Tia's work, something I can already tell, she has a really good understanding of negative space. This is something I can already see in this drawing. Because if you look, she didn't draw the edges of the petals per se, though I can see some lines. It's blurry for me. For some reason, I can't blow it up. But that's not the focus. They're not these same like super dark lines. There's shapes, and you can tell like the shape between the two plant stems on the left, that was really thought out, right? You can kind of see how she was placing it, and it's helped her figure out the length of some of the petals. So she really was doing a great job looking at negative space here. Something that I think will be interesting for her to look at, especially in a challenging image. So things like white petals or a white cat, that's actually quite hard to draw because, again, it's actually about leaving space available. So it'll be interesting to see how She figures out kind of subtlety of light and dark and how to play with very subtle light differences without flattening an image. Because again, if we tried to outline every petal here, that would flatten this image and kind of ruin it. I would say too, something once she has kind of the background in and the shapes sorted, I would start punching in the darks more. So there's obviously the face of the frog's a lot darker, that head part, there's a heavier shadow. Same too at the base of the, oh my goodness, what's the word? Kind of the pollen area of the petal. There's a darker spot. Let me draw it right in here, right? So we could start looking at those. So I think, again, it'll be about refining shape and detail for Tia. She can use the negative space to help her. You know, like, again, though, like this shape was pretty well matched, but it is slightly different. You know, it is like the angle might also, so we're seeing the photograph at an angle, so it might also shift our understanding of the image as well. So yeah, I think assessments are given a bad rap, and they don't necessarily, they make you feel like it's like, oh, here's all the things that are wrong with me and my art. And yet they tell you a lot of information about your art. And that's something you might not be able to understand, but you can have a teacher who knows how to look at assessments to help you with feedback and ideas so that you can start to think about what you might practice. So again, right, for Tia, I think it's about really refining details of shapes for things like the frog's head was a little bit wider, you know? And again, this is a timed draw. Sometimes you might feel pressure because it's timed. Sometimes I encourage you to time yourself for a drawing so you're rushed, so you can't always fix all these details. That's totally fine. When you're rushed or you feel the pressure of something like an assessment, it forces you to make quick decisions. And that's when we can catch what you naturally inclinate to do in your work. So you might naturally incline to widen faces or not push your darks dark enough when it comes to the focus point, you know, the focal points in your work. These are things that you won't know unless you have these kind of pressured moments of drawing and painting that you can then look at and reflect on.